Okay, the role of the CBS, as I already said, it is for shared cataloging and also for interlibrary loan. And we decided that CBS is also the metadata source for discovery. The local library system is responsible for the electric resource management, for acquisition and circulation. And as a result of the decision that for discovery, the metadata source is CBS, as a result of this, we do not need all CBS data in FOLIO. So we try to think a little differently, and we said, okay, let's keep it lean. And so we have the possibility to have fast update processes. And so we decided we just need a selection of fields and records in our local system. We do not need our authority records there. We do not need subject headings and things like that for circulation and acquisition stuff, and just a minimum of relations between the titles. And this can make our processes much faster, and that's important for us. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a slide which shows our record trip. It starts on the left-hand side with CBS, also called K10+. There are our data cataloged, and it comes out from there in an appropriate Pika Plus format. And finally, at the end of the picture, it ends up in the inventory storage in the FOLIO world and can be found via the inventory app and all the other apps. So let's have a deeper dive into the single components. First, OF Pika. OF stands for Online Update Fetch and is a CBS tool. And we use this tool to get the information if a title is inserted or updated or deleted and things like that. And OF Pika is a bundle of little scripts to fetch records from CBS by the CBS OF tool to calculate the record status. Is it an insert? Is it an update? Or is it a delete? And it converts the Pika Plus format to Pika XML and gives information to the next module, the index data harvester. Yes, the index data harvester, also called local index, is a tool that already existed. And we, its primary use was harvesting bibliographic records and its holdings. And the great advantage is that it can read data from a variety of data sources. So it was no possibility to, it was no difficulty to get the data from our CBS. And then the harvester can transform the data through highly configurable XSLT-based transformation steps. And so we can convert our Pika XML very easily by XSLT to FOLIO JSON, and we can just fetch the fields we really need and convert them in the right FOLIO fields, and then the harvester can store them in the different storage systems. In our case, FOLIO Inventory is the aim. Yes, harvest jobs, definitions, scheduling, transformation pipelines are configured in a MySQL database, the harvester. So, but what the harvester could not do is to store the logs and give us information about failed records. And this is very crucial for us, that we can see which records are failed and why they are failed. And so Harvester Admin module was built. And it looks and feels like Folio, as I will show you. And we hope that Harvester Admin will very soon be part of the Folio world. It isn't yet. The Harvester Admin is an Okapi service that can be put, or it is put in our case, in front of the harvester and provides Folio-based access to control the harvester, as I said, for logs and errors. I will show it to you. And it has a front end and a Folio look and feel. So here's an example of the new app. It's called Harvester Admin. And you have there on the top 3 different tabs. The harvestable tabs is for the configuration of the different harvestables. As you can see in the middle, we have the job class. In our case, it's XML bulk, and you can see the last harvest completed. And here the library, the tenant is configured. So this is this page. The harvester has also added to the settings, of course. And in the settings, the transformation steps and pipelines and storage engines can be configured. The XSLT is here stored and can be edited here in the settings. I think Felix will give a deeper dive into it. So back to the harvester and the tab failed records. Here you can see as our failed records are displayed, we have what we need is the HR ID. We need the identifier. This is in the first column, then the title, and then you can see the error message. In the first example here, the barcode value already exists in the table. It's just a clear information for us what to do, and the catalogers can go into it, can search a title and can see what they did wrong there. We have timestamps, and on the left-hand side, you can see that you can filter on the date, and you can that you can search. Okay, that's the Harvester Admin. And now we enter the Folio world. It's also a new tool, Mod Inventory Update, and a copy service in front of Mod Inventory Storage for populating the storage with instances, holdings, and items. Yes, the module accepts get, pull, and delete requests on the right-hand side. Yes, you find an accept of the API documentation. Important is that Mod Inventory Update works with 2 different match keys. You can choose between HR ID matching of the titles and individually defined match keys. And both processes have also a batch what is it in English? Batch version. So sorry. And these batch processes gave a big boost to the complete performance problem. And now we are really fast. I will show you on the next slide. And MIU also creates provisional instances when related instance does not yet exist in the storage. But just a little. We are not, yeah. And we also have the possibility to tell MIU that if we don't want certain fields to be overwritten, then we are very flexible to say MIU, please do not override this field. In regard to performance, we have stable and sufficient fast processes for the initial loading of a tenant's data and also for the real-time update. To give you an example of the State and University Library of Bremen, we were able to load 18.8 million instances, holdings, and items in less than 7 hours. This makes 773 records a second. And also the real-time update is rather fast. The data of 1.5 months was loaded within 2 hours. So we are very satisfied with this now. Okay, my summary. CBS to Folio in a nutshell. With CBS to Folio, we have a functionality to import non-marked records into inventory. Very different record types are possible. We have a real-time update, consistent results, controlled overriding, good performance and scalability, flexible mapping by XSRT, 2 different matching processes, each with batch process, logging. We have a good logging that allows us to troubleshoot. The identifiers are given, error messages are understandable. Cleanup of the log files is still in planning. And we have information about hanging job and last loaded records. What we not have and not need is a connection to SIS. We have no authority records in Folio, and we have just a minimum of relations between the records. So now I will take over with some additional thoughts.
Hello. Is that working? Yeah, it is. So, hello from me as well. Oops. Muted. Okay, we are no longer muted. So what Antje described was how to connect an external system like a source to a target like Folio. So in our case, that is CBS. But you can also think about you can think of any third-party system to connect to Folio, but to inventory directly. So that was laid out. We don't support SRS. We could say yet, but currently we have no plans because we don't need it. But that is why we've planned this session to maybe get in touch with you or get your thoughts and get your use cases. So what would you need and what could we provide? Because we've been developing since actually before the WOLFcon in 2020 in Texas. So before the pandemic started, so 3 years, over 3 years now, and have come to some results, I would say. It is built for CBS, but it is not limited to CBS. I want to now take a deeper look at some of the components and also the app, the Harvester admin. So, of course, what kind of scenarios do we have? We have import scenarios. You can, and that is the great advantage, I would say, you can import any format or any standard that has a format of XML, because we rely on this XSLT transformations. So you can import non-mark, that would be Pika in our case, or even mark, as long as it is provided in an XML serialization. Mark XML, that is, you know much more about Mark than I maybe, but it is managed by Library of Congress. It is a standard that is quite common. And even if you get files, Mark files that don't have Mark XML, it's quite easy to convert them using standard libraries that are available for programming languages like Java, or you can use tools with a GUI like MarkEdit. You can import like binary mark or plain mark and convert it to Mark XML. We don't have any limit to a file size, so you can have a MARC file with just one record. Think like just a single record that you get, 100 records, 1,000 records, 10,000, like large ebook packages. You can import it, but of course, you will get a much better performance when you split large files, but you don't have to do it manually. There is a setting in the harvester where you can specify a number of records, where to split a large file. So for example, you can say, I want to split a large file by in thousands of records, so in small packages. And that is done automatically, and that gives you the also, that is nice because just one at a time is imported. So you don't have a job that is stuck very long, but you have a job for 1,000, then the next, and so on. Also, you can use in parallel using something that we call harvestable. And harvestable, that is something we have to explain. That is basically like a job configuration, and that holds a lot of metadata. I will show you in a second. That is information about the transformation pipeline, and the pipeline is basically just a set of steps that are processed from the beginning to the end. Of course, we need information about storages. You can specify a log level. So do you want to have it like really verbose or really short, just an entry if there is an error? And you, of course, can specify a URL that you want to monitor. So like a URL where you put your new MARC files and then it is running automatically. Could be like a hot folder. And you can use a harvestable just once. So if you get metadata just once from a provider and that is all, then you can create one harvestable, or you can create it and use it over and over again. And that is what we do in CBS. So we have one for every library. We have one harvestable, and that is running like constantly from nighttime the whole day. And we can create, update, and of course delete, if necessary, what we call an inventory record set. So because we are using batch APIs, and we want to streamline the process to be as fast as possible for all the updates, there is the notion of this inventory record set. And what that is basically you have an instance and you have an array of holdings and an array of embedded items. So, and that is what you post, and Mio takes care of it, that it is then imported into mod inventory storage. And using the batch capabilities, you can even have an array of instances with an array of holdings and an array of embedded items. I like that part because maybe I'm really nerdy, but transformation. So that is, my daily work. XSLT, for anyone who hasn't heard it yet, that's a programming language, and you can transfer XML files. So, and the nice thing about XSLT is you write your conversion, that is then XSL, and that is XML by itself. So that is really nice. If you know XML, you can basically write conversions. It's also a standard. There are recommendations from W3C consortium. So that won't go away in the near future. There are different versions, XSLT 1, 2, and 3. They build up on each other. And the really nice thing is it's just a text file. So you can just have a text file. You can use a Windows editor. You can use something more elaborated like Notepad++, or you can use an IDE. That is what we do. You have an IDE, you have support for the language, and you get auto-completion and stuff like that. And you can share it quite easily and reuse it across multiple libraries. So you can use something like Git or like GitHub or GitLab if you want to use such a service. And that comes with the advantage that you have version control for basically for free, because that is already built in. I can show you an example, and I hope it's black. I hope you can see it. I can use the mouse to help illustrate what I'm talking about. So first image here at the left side, you can see that is what XSLT looks like. So you can And it's XML, so it's not as nice to read as JSON, and it's a bit hard to process. So you have like a steep learning curve, but as soon as you know what you do, you are basically, you can do whatever you want, quite whatever you want. So the second line here where you can see source, that is basically a really easy mapping. So you have the instance source as an XML element, and it's just a literal that is being populated here K10+. So our source, that is the union catalog. Then there are, like I said already, there is a way to fetch data from a given field. So in this case, it is Pika, but I will show you an example of Mark in just a second. So what you can do, you can specify variables. In this case, it's ppn, that's the record identifier. And then you can say, okay, look at subfield 003 at, and go into subfield $0, extract the value, and put it in the HRID field. So that is what is happening here. And the third one, that is quite a bit more complex, just to illustrate what you can do. You can also filter out some values, in this case, not contains, and then 99-99. And there's even more things possible. So you can look in different fields. You can have if-else statements. You can have otherwise. So that would be a fallback, a default, if nothing applies. And on the right-hand side, that's a screenshot of our transformation repository. And you can see you have all those, it's quite small, but at the bottom here, you have your the XML files with .xsl at the ending. And you can see there are subfolders for other networks or libraries. So we are already sharing those and building up on each other. Some of you, at least Laura, you were attending last year in Hamburg. So we had a session on CBS to FOLIO again as well last year. But what we didn't had in 2022 was this app called Harvester Admin. So as Antje said, that is not part of is it called Folio Complete? So of the Flower releases. So that's an app you can install, like I don't know if you attended yesterday, the OA app session. So it's basically like the open access app. So it is available in the GitHub repository. You have it, you have the Docker image and the Docker container, and you could install it if you want to use it. And there are two components like we are used in Folio. That is Mod Harvester Admin, that is the backend, and then you have the UI Harvester Admin.
Maybe I can.
Yeah.
So right now the Harvester Admin is a wrapper over an old harvester we have built for a long time ago. But the plan is to build a real Folio harvester module. But that has not been through the whole TCR review process. So, but we are in the works of getting ready for that. So eventually.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. That is an important point. So in order to leverage everything that Harvester Admin can do, you would need to install I don't know, a software outside of Folio. So that is local indices, or what we call it a legacy harvester, because it is, we hope that it will be legacy sometime and have, the real Folio app. So, but that is open source as well. That is licensed under an Apache license. So there is no limit to installing it. Okay, so I just have one hand, so in case I'm typing it, could take a bit longer. So that is a test system provided by Index Data with the current version of the Harvester Admin. So it is a Folio app, but yeah, as I said, not part of the Flower releases, so you won't see it there. And I don't think it is on Folio Snapshot. No, it isn't. No, I don't think it is. So you can see here a list of all the harvestables, but before we dive deeper in it, I want to show you some settings, because there is where you can create everything you need to perform an import. So first are storage engines, and what I did in preparation, I've created here it is. An OC, just a fake and an example, OCL to folio inventory storage. Let's look a bit into it. So you can define a storage type. So in this case, we want to populate inventory storage because that is what we can. The only other option is a Solar storage, but we are not using that. So that could be like, the database for a discovery system. What you have here is OAI repository URL. That is not exactly what you have to put into here. That is the Okapi URL. And then you can specify a set of parameters. So that would be, of course, the folio tenant you want to use, username, password. And then that is what Antje already said. We have two different match key methods, and we have a non-bulk or non-batch and a batch API. And that is what you are specifying here. So in this case, you would match on HRID, so the value in the HRID. If you map the 001 from a mark file to the HRID field, that is basically what we do, but just with Pika data. And you can use the batch APIs. And of course, really important to us, and I guess to all of you, you want to store logs of records that have failed. Next is transformation steps. And there are quite a few here. Let's go down to O. Yeah, so what I did, I created 3 basic OCLC steps. Just look at the first one. And I don't have any mark data flying around, so I can't demonstrate how it would look like then in inventory. So that is just the configuration. So what you typically, or what we do, and what I think is really, really nice. So you can have multiple steps. So we have a step that converts all the bibliographic data. That is one XML file, XSL file. Then we have one that converts the holdings and the items. Then we have one for all the relationships. We have one for, and then we have one to convert codes to UUID, but that, let me show it to you here first. So you can specify an input and an output format. And because what is going in here is XML, you set it to XML. And then if you want to have a second step, so because that is step 1 and then a step 2 following, you want to output it as XML as well. And then you can have your XSLT. And I wouldn't recommend writing it into this folio box. So I would really recommend use a text editor, use an IDE. That works really well because you will do, or I am doing errors all over the time because writing XML is horrible. You have to remember to close all the elements and stuff like that. But let's go to a really basic mapping. So that is how it would look like to map the 001, so the record identifier from a mark field to a local identifier field. So you can say, I want to map it to a local identifier, and then you can say map the mark control field 001 to this local identifier, and then it is extracting the value and putting it into this XML field local identifier. You can do stuff like that. For instance, here, that is the instance ID, or what we call more resource type. You can go into the leaders, byte 7, go to 1 byte. And if it's A, then populate it with a UUID. And if it is C, populate it with another UUID. And you can even do more stuff like you can specify for each statement. So all the identifiers and the subfields. So basically, you can do whatever you need to convert your data. What is not working, but what you could do, and I do it all the time, if you have your script and you have test data, so a record that is flying around, you can insert the test data. So that is a record, a mark record. And there is no button, so I don't know how, but in the old UI there is. So you will see exactly how it would look like after it went through this conversion. And the last step is you are doing all your steps, and then you want to have a pipeline that is using all the steps, but you can specify in which order. So look at OCLC pipeline. So that is quite easy. So you can say, is this pipeline enabled or not? Then you can add all your steps. And the last step, but that isn't working as well. But yeah, that's Folio. You have to convert XML to JSON. And what the harvester provides is like a function that is doing that for you. So you don't have to convert XML to JSON. The harvester will take care of, but I can't save it because, yeah, there are still some open things here that are not fully working. It is a development system. Okay, so that is what one has to do in preparation. And then let's go to the actual app. You could set a harvestable, and I've done that prior to the session as well. So that is a fake OCLC to FOLIO Inventory harvestable. Let's edit it. By the way, that was Mike Taylor inventing like a third pane where you can edit. I really like it. So you don't get a full pane. You just have all your context here. You can, yeah, just edit in the third pane. There are a lot of fields that we actually don't use. So I will go over them. But what you can say here, you can enable the job or you can disable it. That's just a Boolean. And the nice thing is you can schedule your imports. So in this case, you have to use the cron format, but there are helpers that help you writing those. And we could also think of making it a bit more user friendly to input it. But what this notion here said is on every Saturday and Sunday, so 6th day of the week and Sunday at 10 p.m. Run this harvestable. So you can have your data flying around in kind of file storage, and then you can create this harvestable, and you don't have to run it manually. It will run automatically, according to your schedule that you enter here. You can also say you can leave it blank, and then it starts just automatically. That is what we do. So because it is triggered by OUF. You can specify the transformation pipeline, so just one per harvestable. The storage, that is what we looked at the beginning. You can set your log levels, so from verbose, that is trace, over info, that is what we use at a daily basis. Warn and error, so yeah, it depends on what you want to see. So if you are developing, you want to have trace or debug. And in a daily business, maybe you just want to have warning or error. So if anything fails, you want to see it. And if everything goes smoothly, you doesn't care, or we doesn't care. Let's set it to info. You can also specify, that is what we do, how many records are saved per run and in total, because oftentimes, at least in our experience, because we have just one source that is staying static. So when you set up a new location in CBS and you forget to set it up in Folio, then you will get like an error message of, I can't find the holdings permanent location with UUID 1234. And it doesn't matter if you see it once or 100 times or 1,000 times, you know I have to do anything. So that is why you can specify a setting here. So you just, if it's an error, maybe you will see it once and you know what to do. You can also specify an email address. So please send a notification if anything goes wrong. Can select when do you want to be informed by email. So maybe just if anything goes wrong, then a warning. That would be the location where you have your files located. So in this case, it's just example.org/markfiles. You can say, do you want to continue an error and stuff like that. So we have just around 15 minutes, so I will speed up a bit. Cancel out and go back to the slides. So that was a quick overview of the Harvester admin app. And yeah, some area of interest to you mainly, and improvements that we could do are, of course, SRS connection, the match keys, and some of your use cases. So we are interested in hearing your use cases. So that is why I want to have at least, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe for quite a discussion or an exchange of ideas. So to be really clear, and as a reminder, we don't have any connection to SRS yet, so there's nothing we can promise you there. We populate to mod inventory storage directly, but the Harvester is able to store. There was a setting. Oh, I went over it. There was a setting to store the original mark record. So that is what you import in a given storage. So you could think of, maybe the storage could be SRS. But there are some caveats to it, because SRS records have a link to their instance record that they have been created, in these fake mark fields 999. And there's some subfield, I think it's $I, and there you have the UUID of the instance record. So at the moment you import the data, you don't have the UUID of the instance, so you can't populate it before. You would have to have some kind of lookup after you've imported the data, but that is, just theoretically. And there are some unknowns, of course, and maybe some unknown unknowns. So what about performance when populating SRS? So mod inventory update and all of the tools that we presented to you today, they don't have any effect on SRS. So you rely on the SRS performance. And third, the actions taken by SRS on inventory records. So think about, you import a file, you store it in SRS, and you store it in mod inventory storage. But then SRS has some kind of methods to also create the instance records, because that is what it is doing right now. And you don't want to end up with duplicate records. So I don't know. And then match key methods. So there are at the moment two. The one is on HRID, and the other one is on, so that is an identifier that you have. And the second one is a match key. So that is used in the reshare context. When you have different libraries populating one inventory storage to create, like, you could think of it like a union catalog in inventory in a separate tenant, or like a resource sharing index. I think that is what reshare is doing. So you can't rely on identifiers in this case. So there's like this match key where it combines title data. So it's comparing some metadata, title, maybe edition, publication year, maybe ISBN. I don't know exactly. But what I heard in MMSig and what I read in the documentation is that, maybe you need a bit more in the US. So even with if-else conditions. So here's just an example that I came up with. So I'm sure you know a bit more. So what you really need. So in this case, it would mean look at the mark 035 subfield C, and if it matches a value in the instance identifiers with instance identifier type that you have specified for 035C, then update the instance. If there's no match, then please match on, for example, the 001, so the record identifier in the HRID field. Then update the instance, and otherwise do nothing. So and you can enhance such conditions as you wish. Summary. how much time have I left? Yeah. So, yeah, MIU can and mod harvester admin can be used to connect a CBS-based union catalog to inventory, but are not limited to it. The main thing is you need something in XML format, any record type you could think of or format. Has been proven to be reliably loading millions of records in our use cases. No connection to SRS yet. And here's an empty slide with use cases. So I don't know. There is one thing in chat. Okay, Ryan has had to drop off. So do you have, maybe my first question would be, do you have any use cases where you don't need anything in SRS? So that where you just want to have a MARC file that is living somewhere floating around, and you want to just populate mod inventory storage, maybe because you don't need it for discovery, because what you are doing right is you're populating discovery from SRS via OAI PMH.
Not.
Oh.
I could be completely oversimplifying things, but I can see use cases I'm at Cornell would have where we have MARC, but we want our discovery is blacklight, so we have a solar index. And if I understood correctly, we could send the MARC to a solar index, and we could also create an inventory instance where we could then manage holdings and items. Would we be able to, at the same time, configure this to create a holdings record? Because we would very much like, in some cases, one example is we have records where we know the MARC is bad, but it's better than nothing. And if someone then, if that goes into SRS and someone opens it, it throws errors. So we would rather just have something in inventory and something in solar, but we would, I think, need to find a way to generate holdings.
Christy, just one sec. Niels, Eric, you are on the call. Maybe you can answer in chat if that would be possible.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes.
If you can create a holdings record on the fly, that, as Felix described, you could do that, presumably during the XSLT transformation in the style sheet. I'm a little uncertain what kind of data you have available for creating that holdings record, but it would certainly be possible. Yes, the harvester would support putting into Solar as well as into inventory update, currently not in the same process. So you might have to import them twice, or we might have to do something to push it to multiple storage layers at the same time. I also want to say, and this is my bad for not catching that MARC records can be processed as binary MARC by the harvester. It doesn't have to be transformed to XML first, so you can actually import it as binary MARC, and harvester will convert it to XML, and then you can put it through your transformation pipeline as if you had pushed XML in the first place.
My bad.
Oh, thank you for that answer. I have so many use cases, but I will just start off with a couple of questions about potential use cases. Following up on Laura's use case, is there the potential for just submitting a list of identifiers or a CSV file? I'm thinking of being able to create holdings and items in batch and saying, here's the record, and then here's the variable data. And then just rather than having to create a MARC record to carry that information, I think that being able to, I don't know if it's possible to to use this tool and extend it in a way where you're just submitting like a spreadsheet or a CSV file?
You don't have to create MARC records for sure. You can import other formats. The most natural for the harvester would be XML format. So if you have it as CSV or a spreadsheet or what you have, and we're able to transform that to XML format, then you could certainly import it without having to convert it to MARC first.
Christy, were you thinking about like just a set of IDs and then some of the software should go out and fetch it from an external source like OCLC or WorldCut?
No, I was thinking of, maybe providing a holdings HRID and then a list of barcodes and asking the system to create 1,000 items on this holdings with these barcodes and this variable data. Yeah.
It immediately sounds like it needs a little bit of pre-processing because it has to comply with the way things are now. It has to comply with the input format for mod inventory update. It has to be in the format of an instance with 0 or more holdings, and each holding with 0 or more items. So if you could take those data and you say it belongs to this instance, and it has this holding, and there are these items with these barcodes in that format, then it can be imported. Some of that transformation to the correct format might be in form of style sheets in the harvester before it goes to mod inventory update. But then you have to define those style sheets to take that list of barcodes and make it inventory items. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, absolutely. Thank you. So one other use case where I'm seeing a lot of potential for us is managing the bibliographic data for some of our large electronic resource packages, and cycling that large amount of data in and out of Folio is something that we're finding it a challenge to do right now. And you're right, we would maybe need some more complex match points for being able to target records for updates. The immediate questions that I have, I see so much potential. We would need an SRS connection for our own local use case. I'm also I guess my biggest question is there potential for previewing the output of a job, maybe getting a report. If I have a file of 22,000 records and getting a report that says these are the 22,000 records that are going to be updated, just so you can spot check what the logic is doing, because we have found ourselves updating the wrong records. Yeah.
Niels, before you answer, I had a slide until earlier today about test load, or what we call a dry run. So dry run in GoKB is possible, but I was talking with Niels and also Mike Taylor before, and that seems to be really complicated but Niels,
I think what we were talking about here was a preview, kind of like what we have in the order import tool, and that is not too hard to create. It's not it doesn't exist, but the logic for finding out which records to update exists already, of course. So we can amend the mod inventory update to not do anything, but just to tell us what it plans to do with that set of input record. The thing that is very complicated is if you actually wanted to make an update where you could sort of browse around all the record you posted to check what they look like before committing them. This is a very large task. It requires a staging area where you can store those data temporarily and to have give the user the opportunity to browse around them, and then somehow transfer that to the production tables, and that's a very large task. But creating a report of what mod inventory update would do with a given input, that's not too bad. We can do that, but it has to be done.
All right.
Did that answer the question?
Yes.